And then I tried out for the Chargers, and I remember them saying my number. I made it, and I remember my biggest cheerleaders were you and all the prison guys. Like, I remember on the phone. I remember on the phone. It was so loud. They like blew my ear off.
He's like, "Oh man, you're a real life NFL cheerleader."
Yeah. You know how who is this? Oh, it was awesome. And
So great.
yeah, I was just on cloud 9.
And I was just punching the bird emojis like I'm free. I'm free. And so she was sprinting back to that apartment, throwing her Yeti.
My stuff's all over New York. Like, I don't even know where it is. Somewhere.
So I got her journal.
Yeah,
and
everything's gone.
And so she comes to the apartment, and I'm telling her like it's over and over. And she's like, she's looking at the TV. She's like, "What does it say?" I'm like, "I don't care what it says. It says I'm exonerated."
Yeah.
Like, I'm not worried about the details. Like,
Let's
go. Let's fly home.
Yeah.
Let's go celebrate.
Yeah.
The Emmy Award-winning documentary Outcry tells the true story of former Texas high school football star Greg Kelley, who was falsely accused and wrongly convicted of arguably the worst crime imaginable, serving over 3 years in prison. Greg and his now wife Gaebri have lived what is most of our worst fear, the loss of freedom, totally out of their control. Their story is an unbelievable one of grit, determination, loyalty, hope, and ultimately love that we can all draw inspiration from. Today, we sit down to hear context and stories not in the documentary, hear about what builds such incredible character in both of them, and catch up on what life is like for them today. Here's part 2 of 2.
Once you put two together, I mean,
Yeah.
you're inspired.
So this is your ammunition for your writing.
Oh yeah, I'm about to blow her mind.
I got all these poems. I was like, who is this?
Yeah.
It's weird. You're like, we're changing right in front of my eyes.
Yeah, and I got to read one on a podcast. I'm like, that was me?
Yeah, it's weird. Like, reading them back now, you can't even believe, like, it's just...
You know, that's the thing,
So
that you're a
detailed.
product of who you're around. So like, it's like my best buddies in prison, they were like just, you know, Nicholas Sparks loving, like in prison's so full of hate, so full of darkness. It is so full of just so much negative things, so much crime. I mean, think of the world's. I was in a Supermax prison, so I was in a prison where there's 25 years to life. So I was in there with murderers. I was in there with serial killers. I was in there with people that continue to want to live that life, right? And so I was in there with literally just every person that habitually and intentionally sins, right, gets put together, and there's just chaos happening in this corner, chaos happening in this corner, chaos happening in this corner. And here's just little old Greg just wants to just be good and just, you know, sit here and just learn about the Bible. And there's just so much stuff happening around me. You don't feel love in there. Like, there's no love. There's nothing to give you an example of what love is, right? And so I remember my buddy, we were on lockdown. We were on semi-annual lockdown. He slipped me a Nicholas Sparks book. And I remember it was Dear John.
We love you.
It was Dear John. And I was like, I'll read this crap. And so I'll read it. I'm like, and I couldn't put it down.
You're
I read
obsessed.
it all day, cover to cover.
Yeah.
Why? Because I was just dive deep into the part. I'm like, okay, man, what? Are you serious? Is he coming back? And it's because like I'm not experiencing that. And then at the same time, like I read every Nicholas Sparks book in like 6 months.
That's awesome.
And you know, it's made me a lover boy. So
I love Nicholas Sparks now. Yeah.
How did you, like, how difficult was it to form relationships? I mean, going in for what you're in for, I would imagine is the most difficult way to enter that world, like environment. So did you go about, like, the guys take time to build trust with you? Were there people right away that were?
No, I was immediately, everybody doesn't know what you're in there for unless like, so I was major news, right? But like, so half of the people don't watch the news. It's not like, you know, you're a celebrity going in there, right? If you're a celebrity, you're not even going to see general population. So I probably only maybe a dozen people see my face on before, and I was entering a 3,000 man farm, right?
Okay.
Unit. I call it farm because that's what the unit I was on. It was actually a farm unit.
Okay.
Most of it was agricultural work. And so whenever I went in there, nobody really knew who I was until later on happened, right? When I was fighting my case, and I was in the Austin American Statesman a lot more, and the newspaper gets delivered to the prisons and stuff. And so, but I was very fortunate to have like some really strong Christian men who have been down for 30 years, 40 years. I've been in prison for 40 years since they were 16, 17 years old, that went through the race wars in the 80s and the 90s, survived it, right? Maybe did some things they're not proud of because back then it was kill or be killed, right? And they survived that. And then they went on and just became something they like to call Cadillac inmates, which is like, you've been through stuff. So now you're just kind of retired.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're, and now they're able to be in a safe place, right? To be able to worship God and worship Christians, because back then, people, if during a race war, if you were a Christian, you were terminated.
Wow.
Like you were not going to be a part of what's going on in prison. Like they would kill you. And so you couldn't even worship God in that situation in the 80s and 90s. So now they're 40 and 50 years old, and they're in a safe place to be able to be men of God, you know, boldly and courageously and publicly. And so, you know, they go and two of them came up to me. He's like, hey man, at first I was real weary because like you can't trust anybody. They're all manipulative and all that. So they sat down next to me and I'm like, oh God. And so I'm watching TV and he's like, hey man, where you from? And I'm like, I'm Austin. And he's like, hey, you know, my name's, you know, Ray, and this is, they call him Boyo, which is his nickname. Boyo means chicken. He looked like kind of like chicken. But he's like, this is Boyo. We hold Bible study, man, every night at this table. There's gonna be coffee and cookies if you wanna come here. Come on whenever you're ready, right? And just talk, eat some cookies. We just socialize and kind of get to know each other. And I was like, oh, I appreciate it, thanks. And so I just stayed up with myself for a few more days, and then I finally was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to Bible study. So I go to Bible study, and man, we stayed out there at that table until rack up, which was midnight. And I just got to talk and hear their story and where they come from. Blew my mind, all the things they went through. And the relationship started to develop, and the brotherhood started to develop. And those are guys that I still do my very best to try to keep in contact, and hoping and praying that they get out one day. There would be nothing more to see just some of these guys that have impacted my life and my Christian walk, right? And the seeds they planted in my heart when I was going through absolutely hell. There's nothing more than that I want than just see them walk out and just enjoy this second life that they get.
Wow.
So it was tough, but at the same time, I kept my circle small, and I kept the guys that I really trusted real close.
Sure. Oh, that makes sense. Well, I know we interjected with the letters. You were talking about, you had, I think you said it was like your dream from a young age to be an NFL cheerleader, right? That's what it was.
Oh, yeah.
And you were in pursuit of that, and actually, I think, achieved that at one point.
Yes.
So if you were to pick up from there, like how that went.
Yeah, so ever since I was little, I was looking at the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. I saw my sister do it, and I always had a dream to cheer for the NFL. I didn't know necessarily if it'd be Dallas or where it would be, but when I was in Los Angeles, I think the Chargers had just switched over from San Diego to LA. And the year before, I tried out for the Rams, didn't make it. They told me why, and it had to do with Greg, or just our story, literally our story. And then I tried out for the Chargers, and kind of with high hopes, but also like my story might come up. And I remember them saying my number, I made it, and I remember my biggest cheerleaders were you and all the prison guys. Like, I remember on the phone.
Holy cow.
I remember on the phone. It was so loud. They like blew my ear off. I told them, I was like, you guys, you're talking to a new NFL cheerleader. And they're just screaming. And Porter, one of our really close friends that's still in prison, I was like screaming. He's like, you did it. I just had so much support. It was crazy. Yeah. It was all the guys. The whole prison just going crazy for me.
I got to tell her about Alan. Alan, this other guy, I actually taught him how to read and write. He was a Christian brother, but just big old, just country corn-fed guy. Yeah. He's like, oh man, you're a real life NFL cheerleader.
Yeah. Who is this? Oh, it was awesome. And
so great.
Yeah, I was just on cloud 9. I felt like finally something good has happened, because so many bad things had been happening. And, you know, I remember my first game day, we did our cameos, I got the uniform. I'm like a rookie on the team. So usually when you're a rookie, you're like in the back, but she's like, the coach is like putting me in the front. And I'm just like feeling on cloud 9 right now. And I remember after one practice, it was literally, we just learned all our routines. I think it was before our first game day, actually. She's like, all right, we did our little chant out, and then she's like, I need to talk to you, Gaebri. And I'm like thinking like, oh, it's gonna be something good. And I go over there and she's like, hey, so I just wanna talk to you about this Greg Kelley guy. And I'm like, oh, like my boyfriend of like 8 years. You know, right away my heart sinks, because I'm like, oh no, like this can't be that, because I would think they do their research beforehand before taking me onto the team. And I thought they probably thought it was inspiring, like my story, and, you know, want to get behind me, like, how can we help? And instead it's, hey, you need to delete everything about Greg. You can't do these rally things. I used to get on camera and be like, hey guys, everyone, let's meet up at the Williams or the park, and let's have a prayer circle for, you know, get all the GK supporters together. And she's like, yeah, you can't do that anymore. And, you know, pretty much wanting to change my identity, wanting to change my name. Just like nothing about Greg was allowed to be talked about in practices, on my social media, anything. And, you know, right away I just started crying, and I didn't understand why. And I was trying to explain to her, like, he didn't do it. Like I've been explaining to everyone in my life, he did not do this, and trying to tell her what really happened. I'm like, don't worry, he's about to be out. Like, he's gonna start coming to games. Like, just so. And she's like, you sound crazy right now. Like, literally looking at me like, you're insane. And I had a hard time. Like, after that, I had a really hard time, like, going back to practices. And I had some teammates that were so supportive. They were literally like my bridesmaids in our wedding. But just the fact that my coach couldn't support me, it just made my NFL dream like not what I expected, and really heartbreaking, honestly. It was a huge career change for me, because I could have seen myself do that for 6 years. Like, I would have seen, like, if he got out, I'd be like, we're gonna stay in LA. I want to do this. And
long shot for me.
Yeah, I know he's not about LA. He's definitely not about it. So probably worked out for the best. But yeah, it just pretty much crushed my main dream from like a childhood. Like, literally, that was my childhood dream. I finally made it. It was everything I wanted and more, all the best friends, but she just like ripped that from me. And I knew I couldn't come back the next year. He even got out, and what was like the icing on the cake for me, she was like, he's out on bond. There's like more evidence out. And she's like, so he can't come to any games. And he can't come to, I don't even think that's legal. I don't even think you can do that. I don't think you can ban people from games, but she did.
Just recommended that he doesn't go. I'm like, yeah, I'm going.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah. And I mean, banned him from like our calendar shoot, our parties. I mean, I wasn't allowed to tell, we got engaged during that year, which is such a big deal for us. I wasn't allowed to tell that story. So I just knew it wasn't the fit for me. Yeah. It was a great experience dance-wise and friendship-wise, but just the fact that she couldn't get behind this part of my life, I was like, this is pretty much my whole life. Yeah. So I can't do this again. So I decided not to try out again. But I think it was for the best, definitely. We got engaged during that year. I finished out my Chargers. He came to every game. I mean, he was there for me 100%, even though she said not to be. And I feel like I did fulfill that void that I wanted to, like that dream I want to do, but there's also some like heartbreak to it too. Sure. Like I still wish it would have been longer, and she would have supported him or supported me in that. Yeah. But it all worked out, because I ended up coming back, and then we went off to New York right after that. Yeah. So I got a scholarship for Broadway Dance Center. Okay. And that's another dance opportunity I got, that he was 100% supportive of me. And this is when he's already out, so I don't know if we're already jumping to that.
No, yeah, we're good. Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even in that, like, you could have met like her demands, like you could have done what she asked. This is a childhood dream of yours. And again, like, it's another example of, to me, I think what people find so inspiring about, both of you, but that commitment, that loyalty to say like, no, my trust in him, my relationship with him, what you probably saw as doing the right thing, right? Like doing the right thing transcends whatever dream like I could have had here. Yes. And I'm gonna stick with that. And again, I just don't know how many people like would have. and part of why y'all sharing what you share is so inspiring to people. So. So then New York, and now he's out. Now you guys are checking like every Wednesday, right? To see.
Oh,
New York
we're in New York,
New York was part of the tail end of that.
Yeah,
So,
the end of that season.
I got released in 2017, August 22nd, 2017. And that was the day that I walked out of the Williamson County Jail. That was 2 weeks right after the evidence of innocence hearing that I had, that was following the new investigation that was opened 6 months prior to that hearing. And the Texas Rangers did an investigation. The DA did a reinvestigation. They're just kind of turning over all the stones that were never turned over, and just kind of did the investigation that should have been done in the first place. By the police department. And after 6 months of that reinvestigation, and then also the evidence that my attorney and my private investigators gathered, we just presented it and put it all on the table at this hearing in front of Judge Donna King, which is one of the judges here in Williamson County. And then it's up to her, after hearing all of that, to decide if I get an appeal bond, which means I would be bonded out of prison, not jail, prison, as a convicted felon out on bond. In order to do that, you have to present just compelling evidence that, hey, you have enough to be exonerated. Right now, it's just for the CCA, the highest court of criminal appeals, to get that information from Donna King that we presented, and then they make an ultimate fate of what happens to me. And during that process, while they're making their decision, I'm on bond, and now three things could happen to me while I'm on bond, waiting for their decision. One, I can get retried, right? Or the DA can retry my case. I can, the CCA can decide that I can literally go back to prison, literally just return myself back in, start the process all over again, and pick up where I left off. Or three, I get exonerated, right? The CCA exonerates me, which is the equivalent of winning the Mega Ball Million lottery in the state of Texas.
Wow, yeah.
It is literally like I think they did like a 1 in 100 millionth chance to get exonerated. There's only been 230 people in Texas history to ever be exonerated by the state of Texas. And I was like 205. I'm number 205. And I am the first case ever by the CCA. After 2 years, I'm getting ahead of myself. After 2 years of just checking out, I can't believe this has happened. But you can see in the documentary the timeline by how my hair is growing out. So I decided to grow my hair out.
Yeah, sure.
And
No,
I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Right, to give a sense of time, and also I had my head shaved for the past 3 years.
Right.
I'm gonna grow my hair out.
You were over 3 years is how long?
Yeah, 3 years.
Okay.
Right, 3 years, and I was actually in prison, and then another 2 years waiting as still a felon, right? Waiting, technically still an inmate of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, but on county leave on like bench warrant. And then a year of fighting it before I went to prison. So total 6 years fighting this, going through this nightmare. But during those 2 years, I check a list every Wednesday at 8 a.m.
With a camera crew.
Camera crew watching me.
And a coffee.
They would bring me
Starbucks.
coffee to kind of break the ice.
It was great,
Hey,
the
man,
first few weeks.
Just in case if something really bad happens, you get the Starbucks.
Oh,
So,
gosh.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
I couldn't even drink it. I was on edge. I was walking on eggshells that morning.
Yeah.
I was scared. I was scared every single Wednesday morning, and it would always flash back, like every Tuesday night, just thoughts be racing in my head, like, is this the last, night's sleep in a freedom bed? Is this the last time I'm able to, kiss my wife goodnight? And, at the time she was my girlfriend, my fiance. And so am I going to be torn away from my family again? Am I going to have to relive, and is she going to have to relive, and everybody going to have to relive all the emotions again and just go through that again? I don't know if we were ready for it. So this doubt kept entering my mind. Like every good thing that's happening in this world, there's something evil trying to just slither their way on in and cause doubt. And I every Wednesday I'm having to fight that doubt. Like, am I going to open this list and see my name under under the relief not granted, and having to turn myself in. And it came to like week number 82 while we're in New York, in I believe August of 2019.
Yeah, 2019.
She gets an opportunity to accept a scholarship opportunity to go advance her education in dance with the Broadway Dance Center. And it's like a 4-month program. And at the time I was working from my laptop, programming people's workouts and stuff. I was an online fitness coach. And so I could take my work anywhere. And so we end up going together, and we live in like a little small, tiny 200 square foot. I'm not kidding. 200 square foot apartment. Studio
So
apartment.
small. Like when you step off the bed, you're like in your bathroom.
Oh
like
my
it's like
gosh.
I'm telling you,
so small.
It's a closet,
Marriage
man.
counseling.
It was, I don't know. It's like those apartments in Japan where everybody just lives in a closet.
Right.
It's
That's kind of
tiny.
where we were at, and we lived there. I mean, we were never in there. I mean, while she was at dance, I was like, got like a little scooter.
Yeah.
And I was scooting around. And then I was like, oh, look, Statue of Liberty. And I went to the Empire State Building. And I went to the Freedom Tower, 9/11, and all that, right?
Wow, yeah.
So I just scooted around, and then let's go to the gym and work out. And so just try to live a normal life, not thinking about things. And the documentary came up every week. I told Pat when we were making the move up there, the director of Outcry, I said, hey, man, got some news for you. I'm going to follow Gaebri up to New York. We're going to be up there 4 months. I don't know how this thing's going to work out with you filming me every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And he says, we're going up there.
Wow.
Like, what? You got that budget? And he's like, don't worry about it. We got it. And I'm like, okay. And so I was like, all right. So next thing you know, every morning at Wednesday, they're knocking on my door in New York.
Yeah.
And we do the whole thing. And it came out to November 6th, 2019 was that Wednesday morning when, and a lot of people don't realize the intensity of that day.
Yeah.
Because, and it's not because it's just some normal Wednesday that I'm checking this list. It's not that, right? Every day was the same for me. But what's significant about that Wednesday was a week prior, the Wednesday prior to that one, right? Like, what's before November? October?
Yeah.
October 30th or 31st or whatever?
Yeah.
The week prior, Rodney Reed, which is a very significant case right now, right? They denied his stay of execution in the CCA level, the same court I was in. And what that means is when you deny somebody's stay of execution, that means that those judges gave him a green light. A guy who is a lot of evidence showing that he might be innocent of this murder, who's on death row, right? People like Kim Kardashian are backing him up, and all these famous lawyers saying like, man, this evidence can prove that he's innocent. He didn't do this.
Yeah.
The CCA grants a green light for him to get executed. Now he's getting executed in 30 days. This is the same court that my case is in. These are the same judges that are going to be ruling on my case. And the only thing that's running through my head is, man, if they're going to go and pave the way for this man to die, they're not going to lose sleep on going to go put me back in prison. So that's what I'm thinking in my head. Yeah. And so I'm nervous I'm just nervous, heck, man. And I'm shaking, on Wednesday, like, I haven't heard anything from my case in so long, but and I checked the TV, and I remember she's having to do an audition that morning, a singing audition, and I'm having just focus on thinking about her and just not think about this. And then I click the fire stick, man, and I look at the TV, and there's my name's under the relief granted. It's right on top. When you're on top, it means that usually you're one of the more important cases. Yeah. And I clicked on it, and I read that all 9 judges granted me relief. And there's never been, especially this one that we were afraid of, because she might have been the deciding factor, because 5 out of 9 have to agree it's the majority. Okay. 5 out of 9. And we kind of were guesstimating that these judges were going to agree, that these judges were not going to agree. And we know for sure that this one judge named Keller, Judge Keller, which she's an older woman who's been on the CCA for a long time. She has never exonerated anybody, ever. She believes in 100% DNA evidence. You need to, for sure, I'm talking about like crystal clear. You need to give me something that completely drops my jaw, right? Yeah. That I need to lay my head down and say, you know what, holy crap, I just heard this case and he needs to be exonerated. She's never done that before, okay? And she exonerated me on that day. And that's the first time that she's ever exonerated, but it was me. And then on top of that, my case was the first case that has ever been exonerated without DNA evidence, because that's how compelling it was. That's how much things were wrong in my case. Was that
you needed 5 and you got 9?
I got 9.
All 9.
I got all 9. I got the whole shebang.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember Gaebri running to the apartment. She's sprinting.
You
she
sent me like
dips out of
emojis
class.
of birds, like
So
free birds.
in the documentary, if you ever see me like doing that to my phone, people are like, what were you doing to your phone? Was you shaking? I was like, no, I was punching the bird emoji 1,000 times, because we have this inside joke that in the Bible, the bird represents freedom and salvation and land, right? Paradise. And so I was thinking, like, you know, in Noah's Ark, right? That pigeon or a dove, I think it was a dove, that go and it comes back with a twig in its mouth, means that there's land, there's salvation, there's land there, there's freedom. And I was just punching the bird emojis like, I'm free. I'm free. And so she was sprinting back to the apartment, throwing her Yeti.
My stuff's all over New York. Like, I don't even know where it is. Somewhere.
Somebody's got her journal.
Yeah,
and
everything's gone.
And so she comes to the apartment, and I'm telling her, like, it's over and over. And she's like, she's looking at the TV. She's like, what does it say? I'm like, I don't care what it says. It says I'm exonerated. Like, I'm not worried about the details. Like, let's go. Let's fly home. Let's go celebrate.
I mean, I feel like emotional, like in an hour sitting here with you guys to build up to that moment. So like y'all's, like, is there words you can try to put to like the weight of that? Like, you get that text, you see your name on the screen, like your whole future is different. Like, what was that like?
Oh my gosh. I felt like when I was running, I felt like I was like flying. Like it didn't even feel like it was real almost. I literally felt like I was still in a dream, because you wait so long and there was this dark cloud, and it just felt like everything disappeared for a second, and there's sunshine finally, because it was so dark for so long.
Right.
I can't put that in. It's hard to put into words, that feeling.
There's nothing that was ever going to bring us down that day.
No.
I mean, it just, I don't know what the emotion could be, but it just felt like a sense of relief. Like just, there was nothing that was ever going to destroy what we were feeling that day. And that there was reconciliation. My whole life was flashing before my eyes. Like, just think about just a video of just snippets of every important thing that's happened, every hardship you've been through. You know, like waking up and me, like, if I could picture myself just sitting there and crying, wanting to be out and be with my family, and having to wake up in front of bars that reminds you that you're locked up. You know, seeing my buddies get to go play football and on the college level while I'm just chilling here, sitting in the day room, you know, watching them play. Some of them make it to the NFL, and that was my dream. You know, I didn't get to pursue it at the age that I was supposed to, you know, take advantage of it. And, you know, all those things that were just rolling through my brain, and I've had to, you know, deal with, and I've had to, you know, seek help for. It's just, it was just all flashing before me, man. But the biggest thing is I wasn't worried about anything. There was no regret. It was just like, let's get home and be with the people we love that care about us, and let's celebrate this thing. Wow. This is causes for celebration.
Wow. How do you guys feel like the documentary captures that? I'm sure, you know, left, you know, plenty out because it's just 5 episodes to cover those 6 years. But how do you feel like it's an accurate representation, or are there like specific things that you wish they would have added, or, you know, feel like they left out, or?
Just trying to think of everything, because the documentary, honestly, it could have been like 20 episodes long if it had everything in it.
Sure.
But I feel like there's so much to the love story that was left out. I mean, like the letters and how we got to know each other on like what we talked about before, is that wasn't all in there. And I also feel like the way he kind of introduced God to me, again, we went into, whenever he entered prison, I don't feel like we really had a relationship with God at all. And he was the one that was like, when he went to prison, met all these incredible brothers that were on fire for God. And I was kind of like not wanting to hear it. I wanted to talk about other things, about like just what's going on in my life and what, like, I don't know what we're going to do when he gets out. And he just kept talking to me about God. And I was so, like, stop talking to me about this. Like, I was kind of annoyed. I was fed up for some reason. I don't know. I think it's because I was angry with God, too, because I was disappointed in everything that happened. So I didn't want to hear about it. But, you know, slowly but surely that got through to me, and it made our relationship so much stronger. He taught me so much about God and, like, things from the Bible. And I mean, there's so many things I feel like that were in the documentary. More, I mean, even more evidence that we knew about that wasn't in there about Jonathan. Yeah. I mean, I don't think they ever closed that whole story out. I think there's still a little bit of question mark, like, why isn't he being tried for this, or why isn't he being held accountable? There's a lot of accountability that hasn't been.
Yeah.
Well, I think you had, it was like on a podcast or something, you were referencing that there are people that have like signed affidavits saying they heard him like confess, or they heard him.
Yeah.
There's a lot that, so the little backstory about the documentary, and all just nothing but credit and honor to Pat, because Pat's agenda to set out for this documentary was to just tell the story in a light of the legal system, make it sports related because it was going to be on Showtime. But also just the perfect storm of when you literally thought that the impossible can happen, it's happened. In a sense of like, in a way that, like, you know what, like the impossible of perfect strangers coming up and supporting Greg, that's unusual, right? So many things that are wrong with the police department and the justice system all coming together, and the definition of being railroaded is when every area of the justice system fails somebody, either it being the victim in the form of me, or the victim as the actual victim that got assaulted, when the justice system railroaded everybody involved. And so Pat was like, okay, I want to explain this part by the legal case, but I also want to explain Greg's story, as in, like, it is very unusual for just a high school kid to have this much support, right? Why is that, right? It's very unusual for a perfect stranger, Jake Bryden, who I have no connection with. He doesn't know me from Adam. Like, I've never met him. He comes up and finances a lot of things that we couldn't afford in order to pay for attorneys, pay for private investigators. And the only way that I knew about Jake was through her dad Jake was his student, like when he was a leadership teacher, and Jake attended his class.
Wow.
And Jake
I don't
thinks
think they
highly
have like that connection. That's wild. Yeah.
And so I think the documentary was extremely accurate on what Pat was trying to bring across and shed light on. But then again, he had a contract, and he set out with a bunch of video streaming networks, like Netflix was interested, and HBO Max was interested, and different little things. But Netflix was wanting to do 2 hours, a 2-hour doc. You can't tell my story in 2 hours. Wow. You couldn't even tell it in 5 episodes on Showtime. Because there was so much things that was still left out that you can't put in 5 hours worth of documentary. It doesn't fit. Because it's 6 years long.
Right.
And there's so many small moving parts, and there's so many important elements to tell the story in a chronological sense that you couldn't fit it all in 5. And so Pat's like, it's never going to be absolutely perfect. But I'm trying to do my very best to make it make sense and have the audience understand it and how it flows. And so, I mean, I think it was a phenomenal documentary. And when we sat down, we got to premiere it. Me and my family got to premiere it at Pat's office in the little conference area. And we just sat there, and it was really hard, from episode to episode. We had to take a break after every episode because it was just reopening wounds for me.
I can't imagine.
It was reopening wounds for her and my family, and Jake even was there, Jake Bryden, and he, I mean, within one episode, he's over at the whiskey bar, like pouring a glass, because he's just he's really battling some things. And Jake as a phenomenal person he still deals with like a lot of the stuff that he took on as fighting for me, because Jake's a hard-nosed guy, and he will fight. and he will fight, but he's also a human being.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And so he's had to take on a lot of heat. You know, people attacked his business. And he, without a doubt, he counted the cost and he said it was worth it.
Yeah.
And each and every way of the step. And so when we premiered it, it was really hard to see it. But ultimately at the end of it, I gave Pat a big hug and I was like, dude, thank you for telling my story.
Yeah. And he was nervous showing us too.
Oh, he was
so
extremely
nervous.
nervous.
He was so nervous.
He kept he's like, everything okay?
Yeah, I'm like, we're good. We're good.
How cool that he like cares that much though.
Yeah.
I mean, about what you guys think and
He
your perspective.
reiterated
And
it
it's
to us.
just,
He's like, look, this means the world to me, guys. Like
Yeah.
how you see it.
Yeah.
And it's your story, Greg. And
yeah.
And he was just like, I'm like, dude, just chill.
Yeah, it's making me nervous. Everyone needs to calm down.
Yeah.
And so, it was a great doc.
Yeah.
Well, it ends basically with like a highlight of y'all's wedding, more or less, right? And we don't get a whole lot of life since or life after. So I am curious, like, you know, nobody can go back through and live the experience you guys lived. But if you were to like, you know, try to describe some of the ways in which life is different for you now, maybe it's a perspective thing or principles learned, I would just imagine that you guys have a appreciation for life, freedom, little things, relationships, like, you know, whatever it would be. I don't want to fill in the blank for you, but what would be some ways that you would say life today post, not that you don't, not still in it or deal with, you know, effects, but post all of this is different now?
Yeah. Whew, I feel so many different ways. One is my community. I appreciate it so much because I wouldn't have made it through that whole fight, all the rallies, all the heartbreak. I had such a good community of perfect strangers and then also my family too. So I appreciate my community. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm back in Leander. Really, everyone's like, why are you living here when all this bad stuff happened to you? And I'm here because these are the people that were with me and supported us big time. And I appreciate it so much more, I feel like, because of what we went through. And then another one's like patience. I did not have patience going into this, and now I have nothing but patience because of those long 6 years. I mean, it was a battle, an uphill battle. And a lot of, I feel like a lot of this and then a lot of drops in our story. And then there'd be a good thing and then we drop even lower. And I had to be patient with it all. So now in life, I'm a lot more patient and I enjoy every single moment I have with this guy because we were apart for so long. And I mean, even just last night, we were like laying by each other and I was getting emotional because I was just thinking, like, I remember when I used to lay in my bed and wish he was back here. And now I finally have him. So like every little thing we do together, whether it's just like drinking coffee in the morning or going on a walk or, I don't know, traveling somewhere, it's more precious now because of what we've been through.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, life now, it's hard because I've had a lot of people ask me the question, you know, what if you never moved in that house? What if you never got accused? What if you never got convicted? What if, like, this chapter of your life never happened? Where would you be at? You know, and that's a question I can't answer because that's not how my story was written. My story, something happened early on. Something very unfortunate happened to me early on. And I'm a big believer that, you know, the things that happen to you in life, all the small little adversities that happen to you, create you to become a very resilient person later on, after all of it. And so people have asked me and ask her all the time, like, how did you get through it? And how did it mold you today? And I think she was explaining that, like, she had the leadership, like her father, and she was put in a leadership position from the things that she learned from her father to go and cultivate and to go and refine. And then it became part of her identity, which is leadership. And so with me, maybe it was the things that going through having hard-nosed coaches like Coach Salazar, who is the head coach now at Westlake High School, one of the best coaches in the whole United States in high school football, right? Who was my coach for years, who I think I learned how to fight and have grit in fifth quarter overtime situations where quitting was never an option. Can't was not in our vocabulary. Yes, sir, and no, sir was in our vocabulary. how we treat each other as teammates, how we treat our coaches, our parents. And we had devotional. Our head coach was a Christian man who believed in building men and have them lead the program instead of just a phenomenal 5-star athlete. And so maybe those things were instilled in me at a very young age. All these little external things kind of built me up to become this person to be able maybe to go through all of this. And then the ultimate thing that I kind of pat myself on the back for, and if you ever ask me like what was the deciding factor on becoming the person that saw the other side of this, of injustice, and made it to the light at the end of the tunnel compared to just dying in prison. What I mean by die is mentally die, spiritually die, becoming and leaving. If you ever watch Shawshank Redemption, there's a line at the main character, and it caught my eye because it's so true. The main character was in a book in the library, and he was talking to another inmate, and the main character is actually innocent. And he's in the book, and he's actually plotting his way to escape prison. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, right? Yeah. Because he was plotting his way to escape prison, but what prison has created him. And he said this line, he said, "I came into prison as straight as an arrow, and I'm leaving as crooked as a snake."
You know, the funny thing is, on the outside, I was an honest man, straight as an arrow. I had to come to prison to be a crook.
And now what that means is that like he came in as an innocent person, but becoming as crooked as a snake got him to come out of prison. Now, if I became crooked as I'm not gonna break out of prison. So, but if it allowed me to become as crooked as a snake, I would have left prison as a worse person than when I came in.
Wow.
And maybe she wouldn't see this man and fall in love and want to marry him. Right. And so I wouldn't have her. I'd be alone. Wow. I wouldn't know what I would be doing. Maybe I would be, I don't know, maybe I'd be so thrown off mentally that I would be homeless or whatever, right? I don't know. But I know I wouldn't have the most important thing in my life. I wouldn't have family. I wouldn't have this desire to go and be successful and establish something before we have a family and prioritize our life. Right. And unfortunately, prison, here's the paradigm here. Prison was a place where I've learned what I do in business, woodworking, right? I took entrepreneurship classes in prison that then later led me to, taking business classes at UT and pursuing a degree at University of Texas at Austin. My dream school that I wish that I got an offer for from football, that I never got an offer to go play football for. Football was all I knew in high school. But I was so scared. I remember telling you earlier, I was so scared of doing anything else because football was the only thing I know. Well, going to prison and learning all of these things with all distractions set aside developed skills for me that if I get out, and I was very fortunate to play football at Eastern Michigan University. That's part of my story I didn't say, but I got the opportunity to get a D1 full ride to go play football up in Michigan when I got out for 1 year. And I made a decision, kind of how Gaebri made a decision for me to come back to Texas and start our life together. I decided to give it up there because I was separate. I made the choice to separate myself from my family, and I came to a realization that I love football so much, but I'm not scared anymore if I don't have it anymore.
Wow.
I'm not scared. I know how to woodwork. I know how to start a business. I've got all these tools. I'm gonna go and start this next chapter of my life, and that's what I'm doing right now. And all of that would not be possible if I decided to just die in prison. And so if I could ever tell myself, in my old self, my 18-year-old self, right? If I could, right? Me right now, at this moment in my life, could tell the 18-year-old Greg, I would just tell him, man, it's going to be all worth it. It's going to be worth it. Nothing's going to be in vain. And so, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
What if we ended then just on a quick life update for y'all, people that have been following you, maybe did see the documentary and are like, what's life after? Your guys are both pursuing significant things now. We're shooting this in your studio. So what are you guys both just working on, big right now that you're excited about?
Yeah, well, we're both actually part owners of Move, which is now, we have 700 kids, and how big is this space? 25,000 square feet. So Dream Studio. I'm the director of Move Crew, which is a hip hop company, and I just love these kids because they're all so different, and they're passionate about different things, but they also share the same passion in hip hop. And I love getting to teach from 5-year-olds all the way up to 18-year-olds and help them kind of figure out what their passions are. Because I was really fortunate. Again, I found my passion when I was in middle school, and I knew what I wanted to do, and it got me through a lot of these awful times that I went through. So I'm trying to help these kids find their passion. And I love my studio. I love my job. It doesn't feel like work. And then we also started a small business. You want to talk about Tomahawk?
Yeah, so Tomahawk Targets, crazy story. People ask me, why'd you get into axe throwing?
So random.
Right? You would have asked me 2 years ago, hey, would you ever want to be an owner-operator of an axe throwing company that manufactures and sells axe throwing targets online and now has another venture, which is an axe throwing rental trailer? I would laugh and be like, axe throwing? That's a thing? That's a sport?
Yeah.
And I actually went for my bachelor's party in early January, right before COVID-19 got all crazy, and we all went on lockdown. I went to Dallas with my buddies, my bachelors, right, my groomsmen, and we went axe throwing. And that's the first time I ever went axe throwing, January of 2019.
Okay.
2020, January 2020. And I go and just hit bullseye after bullseye after bullseye. I'm like, man, I'm pretty good at this. and it's just one of those exhilarating things when you throw an axe and you get to hang out with your buddies and they're all laughing. I'm like, this is actually something that maybe we can make it a regular thing, And
Yeah.
And so, but then this business savvy guy, I'm a Shark Tank guy, and we watch Shark Tank every day. Like, we have a dinner table, and we go to the man cave, and we eat our dinner, and we watch Shark Tank.
Yeah,
so,
that's great.
So I have this business savvy mind. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I put myself through those classes for a reason, right? And so I was looking at this place. I was like, man, this is like a metal building, and what the overhead is, and I'm just going through all the numbers in my head, and how much does that wood cost? How much is that coach getting paid? And just kind of like, man, they're probably making a killing, right? And I was like, so I'm like, I don't want to own like a brick and mortar place. And so I go and do some research about axe throwing and how popular it is on ESPN now. And there's actually world championship. There's a league, it's professionals that do it now, like paid for a living to do it. And I'm wondering, I wonder if anybody's making these residentially for their backyard, right? Mm-hmm. Like when you go and throw axes, is it like a cornhole situation where you can go to a cornhole tournament, but are people making cornholes for the backyard? Yes. Yeah. And so I see it, nobody's doing it. Nobody is doing it. So I'm like, I know how to drill wood together. Yeah. I know how to cut wood with a chop saw. Right. Yeah. I know how to measure wood. Yeah. Why not make my own? And so I make one because the pandemic hit. I lost my gym job because the gym's closed. Nobody needed trainers anymore, right? And so I went to Home Depot and it's not up anymore. I destroyed it. But the original prototype for the target that I made in her dad's backyard, him and I threw on, and I started posting on social media, right? When everybody was on social media because they had nothing else to do, the beginning of the lockdowns. Wow. Yeah. Father's Day was coming up. And I just kind of posted, and I just threw I wasn't even trying to sell them. I was just kind of just posting on my story, throwing with my father-in-law. And people literally like, hey, where'd you get that target? Axe throwing is fun. I went the other day. I was like, I built this one myself. Can you build me one? Yeah. They're like, sure, yeah. Just, I'll charge you a little bit and material, and I'm building one for one person, and it's word of mouth from there. Right. And then Father's Day, I remember one time I told Gaebri, I don't know where people were messaging us. And I'm like, hey, we might be onto something. Like, we might have hit a honey hole or something. Because I enjoy building. I really do. And Father's Day comes around, and out of nowhere, 50 people are interested in the target. I'm selling these targets for $500 each. And 50 people over one weekend want targets.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And so I told Gabriel, I said, hey, honey, I'm coming home like maybe in 4 days. Yeah. I got to go to the shop. and I got to knock all these out real quick. And so we knock them all out. I knock them all out. And I'm not kidding, Father's Day, early in the morning, me and my brothers, we gather as much pickup trucks as we can. And we're shooting these targets to this neighborhood around Austin, this neighborhood to this address. And we get them all delivered out, and people have great Father's Day. And from there, oh man, the rest was history. I mean, the business grew, and I actually had to step out to go play football up in Eastern Michigan. My brother ran the shop, and we expanded the shop. And long story short, 2 years later, we're a successful, well-established target business that have 14 different designs and creations. We have one target patent pending. We have one target patent pending with a design patent. I've got 4 employees now, and
you have a trailer.
We started this new venture last month with the axe throwing rental trailers, so we're going to now be servicing all over Austin area for like events and stuff with our double lane axe throwing trailer with lights and music and stuff. So I'm personally coaching. I love interacting with people. Yeah. So I'm going to be coaching that trailer until I have to get somebody else to do it.
Hey, you got me on the board quick. My first 3 were like right into the ground. Then I was like, what the heck?
Good coach.
Yeah, man. That's great. Well, we love what we do. We're passionate about what we do. And that's the thing that's one thing about us and our life now is that I always want to ask myself, and I encourage anybody else who is doing their job and having a career, would you do what you do without getting paid? Would you do what you do without getting paid? And if you say yes, that means you're exactly where you need to be, because that's a passion within inside yourself. Wow. And the day that I knew that I wanted to coach on an axe throwing trailer is when I did a free event for the church that we, Jake Bryden and Bob Bryden's church. And I did a free event, and we had a great time. And I wasn't worrying about if I'm getting paid for this event. Wow. So I was just providing my trailer. Yeah. And it was a great time. Yeah. And so I was like, you know what? This is exactly what we need to be doing. I'm doing something. She's doing something she's passionate about. I'm doing something she's passionate about. She works extremely hard, and she does things way above her pay grade. But the reason why she does it is because it doesn't feel like work for her. Wow. And she's passionate about it, and it fulfills us all. So wow.
And how amazing that you connected the ventures that you're in now with things that you learned in this, crazy season. How all of those dominoes, connect. It's just nobody could see it. But I think it was you that said, like, you would not say you were grateful for that time, but you value that part of your story. Absolutely. Right? I thought that was such an amazing way to phrase it, the authenticity of the pain of it, and also there's this incredible value you said multiple times, would not be who we are or where we are and all these things. It's just wild to sit through all the pieces and see how you guys, where you are today as a result of that, and are inspiring to so many. So I really appreciate you guys sitting down for this long for us. I think it's something where people, most humans will never experience the degree of the pain that you did, but there's so many things that people can connect with. The fear of not being in control of our own stories, the uncertainty, what if the worst happens, all of these different pieces, and to watch you guys be so open with your story and share it in different, varying platforms and be an inspiration to people. I mean, I'm just one of, many, many people who are so grateful for y'all. So seriously, thank you for sitting down with us for a long time, and it's been awesome.